welcome back to the program. We got State Representative Brandt Smith is with us. Brandt, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Paul. Thank you for having me today.
It's always great to have you. Last time I think we had you on, we talked about the Arkansas School for Math and Science and the Arts. I want to get into that, but first,
Okay.
you're running a fourth term, right?
Yes, sir. I'm announcing that that's the plan to run for another term in the State House.
Nice. And how do you think? How do you think things have been going? I mean, what it'll be a fourth term for you, right?
Right.
And you were this time, you were the whip, correct?
Right, and I'm considering running again for House Majority Whip, but if I do that, it cuts me out of being eligible because of time constraints for chairing or co-chairing committees. So
yeah.
I've got a lot of things to consider.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that now.
Interesting. Okay, so can you give us an update? Because I know you and legislators, you name the legislators that you've been working with, investigating the Arkansas School for Math and Science down in Hot Springs. Some strange stuff like a privilege walk and really progressive indoctrination that appears to have been going on.
Well, yeah, that's it's ongoing. Did meet with Dr. Bobbitt of University of Arkansas and his legal counsel, Melissa Rusk, this week. And that meeting was held in Little Rock at the Capitol, fourth floor conference room on the House side. We had Senator Clark, Senator Mark Johnson. We had Representative Gazaway, Mark Lowry, and I sat down for, a little over 2 hours with them. And one of the first questions I had was about that privilege walk, and Dr. Bobbitt did say that's gone. It may be appropriate for college level students, but it's inappropriate for high school students. And I agreed with that. I felt like it was more divisive than anything, and children don't need to be placed in a position where they feel just because they're in a two-parent family or they have books in their home or they have a car or several other things that they are privileged to the point that it separates them from the student body. And so that's gone. And that was a major thing. And then, well, let me tell you this, another thing, there were concerns about young Republicans at the school not being allowed to have a club. Yesterday, received a text from one of my constituents saying that the students now have a Young Republicans Club on the campus of ASMSA, and that more than right at 50 students signed up.
Wow.
And see, the allegation or the comment from the school was, you don't have a sponsor, you don't have enough interest, there's not enough students that want to do it. Well, when you look at the student body size, roughly 230, 240, and 50 kids sign up to be a part of the Young Republicans Club, that's huge.
Yeah.
And so I commented back to the constituent, make sure they get their application completed and turned in by the due date. And they said they've already done that and they're approved.
Wow.
So we now have that checked off.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I want to remind everybody the privilege walk though was something that was not a voluntary thing, correct? I mean, it was.
No, they lined up all of the incoming juniors, I guess, and this year they've added 5 or 6 10th graders as a test, a pilot, program to see how well they would do in a dormitory, type setting. But yeah, they were forced to do it, and it was demoralizing to a lot of the children.
Well, no doubt. I mean, it's a progressive concept. This idea that we're trying to pursue equality of outcome, and so if we're going to pursue equality of outcome, we got to understand who's got advantages, and that's the thing is like we're equal under the law, but there are people born with different talents. There are people born into different circumstances.
Right.
I mean, the whole school itself is for very smart kids. That's
right.
why this thing is. That's why this is so. It was so hypocritical for them to do this because these guys are already the cream of the crop.
Well, and a lot of these students do go on to receive scholarships from some of our Ivy League schools. Some of them enter our military academies. So I'm proud of that for their sake. But a lot of the parents were concerned that this has simply become an indoctrination site to change the foundational principles or truths that these children have been reared in at their home back in their districts. And we're just going to hold the school more accountable. And one comment that Dr. Bobbitt did make that I did not think was very well stated, made the comment about the visitors board meeting back in May of this year, how that some of the parents who stood up to speak on behalf of their children that were the unsophisticated parents.
Okay.
And I thought, how can a parent, conceive, birth, and rear a child that is borderline or genius level? How can these parents be called unsophisticated? Looks to me like they did something right. And, it could be that all the stars aligned, and it was a freak accident, but I doubt that.
Well, I think I would say that's really going to the point of people in positions of authority don't like to have that authority questioned. And, a parent, it doesn't matter if you're a teacher, and the parent is always going to think that they have more authority over their child and want to stand up for it. And a lot of times you don't like that.
The thing is, I have a PhD. I earned it, wrote my dissertation, did my field research in a combat environment. Mm-hmm. So I've been around.
So should we change the logo here to state to Dr. State Representative? Dr.
Brandt Smith, State Legislator.
Okay.
Well, there's so many titles, but my favorite one is Pawpaw. Okay.
Okay.
But the point I want to make is I've been around academics. Mm-hmm. There are hundreds or thousands of humble academics, professors that love their students and want them to learn how to maybe conduct research or field research, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, methodologies. But there are others who, once they get that PhD, they feel like they're God's gift to the planet. Mm-hmm. And I don't like being around those people. The only difference, and someone said to me, well, PhD stands for piled higher and deeper. Mm-hmm. And I just think we have to treat everyone with value, whether they have a GED or they have a bachelor's degree or nothing.
Yeah.
And that's always the way I've tried to live my life.
We're talking with State Representative Brandt Smith. He has announced he's running for a fourth term. We're talking about the Arkansas School for Math and Science, the development with that. Yeah. I guess there's probably more to come on this, but I appreciate you. And once again, the reason, you're from Jonesboro. This is a school that's down in Garland County, but
it's a state school.
It's a state school.
It's not a local school district where, but
you have constituents that send their kids there.
Right.
And then,
Mark Lowry has 5 constituents with children there. But I would say that we have pushed and asked for the unredacted version of the executive summary and the investigation report, 64 pages of things some things have been redacted, and we have just said, you should be able to print that unredacted version off, bring it in, and let us, those of us that were in that meeting, read through it and make a determination.
Yeah.
And then we'll turn that report back over to you, so you walk in with it, you walk out with it.
Right.
But they're discussing that now, but a lot of that depends on whether or not the director, Corey Alderdice, will, I guess, release it, because he basically has a right to refuse that, but that's forcing us to go ahead and bring them before JPR, and then everything is public, live stream, the whole 9 yards.
All right, so remind everybody of what you can say about your time in Iraq.
Well, I was picked up by the Army and thought I was going as a contractor. But after a month and a half, the colonel came in and said, "Dr. Smith, if you want to stay, raise your right hand and swear in." And so immediately upon doing that, the next morning, he said, "Hey, you're a GS-15 Step 1." And I said, "Is that good?" I didn't know. I was over there just to serve and be an embedded senior social scientist. But I served over there for 65 and a half months. And so that's why I love mowing my yard now. I'll cut it, water it, and mow it again, because it's desert, it's arid.
Yeah.
And but one of the things that I did, and I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but the Chinese have come in behind us in our military action and been involved in the oil field production kinds of things.
I heard that a few years ago.
Well, yeah.
That they kind of are laying claim to some of that, right?
Well, yeah, they are, and they want it because they've got experience in wells and that kind of thing. But one of my lieutenant colonels, Lieutenant Colonel Michael R. Eastman, one of the greatest leaders I've ever been around, said to me, "Why don't you fly down to where the Chinese are meeting with local officials and the military, the PRTs, provincial reconstruction teams, and since you're a Mandarin speaker, why don't you just browse, mill around, listen, don't say anything, I don't want them to know you speak and understand Mandarin, so listen." And one of the
because I want to remind you, because you also spent time in places in China, right? I mean,
yes, along the China border with
Yeah.
Burma or Myanmar for years. But the big takeaway for me from that meeting down in the oil fields was the Chinese said, "Let's let the Americans fight the war, and then we'll come in and take over
the oil
fields."
Wow.
As a service to the Iraqi people.
And when was this?
Would have been between 2008, probably 2009, 2010.
Wow, that's
In
a
that
strategy
time frame.
right there.
Yeah.
So we spend trillions of dollars, or $1 trillion, or whatever we spent,
Right.
and blood of
Yes.
American soldiers,
Yes.
and then they come back in behind it. And
Well, I actually witnessed pallet loads of $100 bills being moved in the bed of pickup trucks that we also provided, and it was just constantly money.
Wow.
For the Sons of Iraq, other programs that we were trying to do, and it was all well intentioned, but it was never sustainable.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about? You see, you met a guy over there who's now challenging Ilhan Omar for
Right.
her congressional seat.
Chris Kelley.
Chris Kelley.
He was on my team. I was actually his team leader at the time with our human terrain team, and we were down at Kabader or Talil Air Base in southern Iraq. And one day he just said to me, he was a research manager on our team in uniform there serving, and he said, "Brandt, I just need to get out of this Connex. I've got to go do something." And I said, "Well, you can go anytime you want out on mission." And he said, "I really need to get out." And so I began to put Chris in the Humvees and out on missions, and I photographed him as often as I could. He thrived. And so when he told me, when he announced that he was running against Ilhan Omar, he said the fascinating thing is he's also a Minneapolis police officer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm reading that right now about it.
And his patrol beat basically is within the Somali community up there.
Wow.
And so he said, "Brandt, what I learned in Iraq about networking with local nationals and how to deal with other cultures has really benefited me as a police officer." And he said, the Somalis are coming to him and they're saying, "We need you to run against Ilhan. She does not represent us. She's an embarrassment." And so I asked Chris, I said, "Are you running as a Republican?" I was trying to be diplomatic. "What party are you affiliated?" And he said, "Well, I went to the Republicans, but they weren't interested in me, so I decided to run as an independent."
Wow. Okay.
And I think he's gaining traction. He's been on Fox numerous times.
Yeah, I see this.
And,
I mean, I see this is a screenshot up at the Hill of him on Fox.
Yeah.
Vet challenges Omar for her seat in Congress, an independent from Minnesota.
Well, and he's solid.
Mhm.
I mean, when you're living and working with a battle buddy in a combat environment, there's not a lot of things that don't surface.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that this officer or this Iraq War vet, Chris Kelley, challenging Ilhan Omar, hasn't married his sister or anything like that.
I don't think you would ever get Chris to even admit that, you
Well,
know,
yeah,
but no.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar married her brother, so
Right.
that's a thing.
Yeah, well, keep it all in the family.
That's right, I guess.
No, I'm really proud of Chris, and we talk about every 2 weeks, and he's got that Minnesota accent, you know, and it just is so thick, but he represents, I believe he'll represent his district
Yeah.
so much better than what we've got now.
Wow. So when y'all talk, y'all ever reminisce about the time in Iraq?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of the first comments he made to me in one of our initial conversations was, hey, you took a lot of pictures out there. Can you go back and look and pull up any photograph that you have of me and send it to me? So I went back. Took me like an hour and a half to go through, you know, thumb drives and hard drives, you know, and I found probably 20 photographs of him out dealing with Iraqis in a market town.
Wow.
And, you know, we had security around us. He was armed. I was unarmed at that time. But I would walk right into the tea shops and sit down, and Chris would go with me, and we'd sit there and drink tea and talk to people. You know, the thing is, if you don't talk to people that are, you don't know what's on their mind. And that was one of the flaws with our strategy in Iraq. We never stopped long enough to ask the common people of Iraq, what do you want?
Wow.
We came in with our programs and our plans, and we executed those programs and plans, but they're unsustainable because there was not really a lot of buy-in
Yeah.
from the nationals. And so I still relate to several Iraqis and consider them friends, you know, but Chris was a natural. And I think the people of his district and his patrol area recognize him as, he may be the big 6'3", whatever size he is, American, you know, white national guy, you know, American, but he's going to represent the Somalis better and
Wow.
and literally help them instead of promoting himself if he makes it to
Well, and
DC.
so that's what they're upset. Ilhan Omar promoted herself. You know,
She's more interested in her own notoriety
Yeah,
and her own fame than
that's-
her own people.
that's pretty clear. That's
And
pretty
it's
clear.
it's strange that President Obama at the time, would send thousands of Somalis to one district. It was almost like the strategy here is, let's get 60, 70,000, I don't know what the number is, Somalis in that one district, and then eventually they'll produce a candidate that will win against any other candidate that runs. So, and that's where we are with Ilhan Omar.
Definitely a strategy. Well, State Representative Brandt Smith, it's always good to have you on. I appreciate that connection there. You know, that's a very good story. And
Yeah.
also the work that you're doing with the Arkansas School for Math and Science, trying to get to the bottom of that and running for 4th term. So congratulations on that.
I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you very much.
All righty. Have a great weekend.